$643 million worldwide is a really crummy number, because if you say there are 200,000 of us, and there are certainly more, if you divide 643 million by 200,000, it's like $3,000. I'm making more than $3,000 a year. So does that mean that I'm incredibly exceptional and that I'm super dope? And
that's exactly what that means.
What's going down? We are at episode 6. I got it right this time, right? Episode 6.
Yes, sir.
MEC podcast. It is Payne. It is Dame. We're just going to have to start calling ourselves Pame.
That's all bad. I know you wanted to talk about DJs and their role in the music industry these days. So we can kick it off with that. But I definitely want to talk about Meek Mill and him signing his label deal with Roc Nation. I also want to pick up our conversation from Twitter about you saying that you don't necessarily need a team. And then there's also an article that I have that I wanted to pick up from, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I forgot to mention it, just talking about how much money independent artists are making from recorded music, you know, versus major label artists or just artists that are signed to labels, because I think the insight is interesting. So those are definitely the topics that I'd like to cover. If we don't get to all of them, we'll punt one or two of them to next week. But, you know, I think it'll be a dope discussion for sure.
Let's start with that whole collective earning figure of all independent artists over the last year. What was that figure?
Okay, so we're not starting with DJs. We're going to start with this article. So the article said that artists without record labels generated $643 million in 2018, and that's up 35% from the prior year. And that number seems impressive. I mean, it's a big number, 643 million. However, the next sentence says that represents 3.3% of the share of recorded music revenues, up from 2.8% in 2017. And I just thought, you know, the first number being fairly impressive, 643 million, but then understanding that that's only 3.3% of the share of recorded music revenues. You know, and it just makes me feel like, you know, everybody's kind of encouraging people to be independent. Being independent is being glorified, but then we see that it's only 3.3% of recorded music revenue in 2018, and that's such a small sliver of the overall pie. You know, I just think it's interesting. You know, I think it's interesting. I always think that being independent is great. You can take a lot of control these days. We have a lot of resources, a lot of tools to build our business independently. But I always think that people kind of underestimate exactly what it takes to do that, right? You can not have a label, you cannot have whoever, but you do need to replace what a label would do on your own. So whether that's yourself or you building out your own team, that is not so easy to do. And to maintain and build momentum, it's not an easy thing to do. It's possible, you know, and it's the best route for a lot of artists. But, you know, these numbers highlight that it's not like independent artists are taking over the music industry, by no means. So I just think that's interesting.
All right, this is another Rolling Stone article, isn't it?
It's not. It's actually not a Rolling. I think Rolling Stone kind of picked up the data as well.
They did. I'm looking at that's the first thing that came up on Google. I was like, damn it, it's another one of these Rolling Stone articles. So this is the first one that came up. Let me just read the Rolling Stone article, because I have, you know, I've been giving Rolling Stone the side eye ever since the Old Town Road.
Okay.
This is written by Tim Ingham. Whoever wrote the Young Keo article is, as I said,
he didn't do research though. He didn't research the numbers. He's pulling the numbers from Media Research, which is not Billboard. So just keep that in mind for whatever you're about to say.
Well, that's kind of my problem with them even reporting on this number. I mean, the headline here is DIY artists will earn more than $1 billion this year. So already I'm questioning what they mean by DIY. So it says slowly but surely independent artists are devouring the recorded music industry. already right there I have an issue, because now they're conflating DIY with independent. Obviously, independent artists can be signed to a label. So are we talking about DIY artists being artists who have
No,
no
it's clear in the article that they're talking about artists that aren't signed to a label. So it's not
not in this
independent.
article?
It's not independent versus major. It's artists that are not signed to a label.
It estimates that last year self-releasing artists generated $643 million worldwide. $643 million worldwide is a really crummy number, because if you divide 643 million by 200,000, it's like $3,000. And so that makes me think, obviously I'm making more than $3,000 a year. I wouldn't be here right now if I were only making $3,000 a year. So does that mean that I'm incredibly exceptional and that I'm super dope and
yes, that's exactly what that means. Because a lion's share of the artists that are self-releasing aren't making hardly anything, like literally $10, $20 maybe, because we've already seen from other reporting that most of the music on Spotify is not being listened to. I mean, if you think about it, if 40,000 tracks are being uploaded every single day, we have to assume that 39,000 and probably some change aren't being listened to, or maybe 38,000, whatever the number is.
I see. So as a part of that number, we're combining people like me who have been doing this for a living for years and years and years. We're with people like someone like Mark Battles, who's, as far as I know, still DIY, but doing it on a really large scale and has been for a decade, with the guy that records a parody song on his iPhone and uploads it to TuneCore.
Yeah, and that, along with the many artists that are trying very hard but aren't getting traction. It's all of those people that are self-releasing music.
Okay, so that's kind of a funny number, given that there might be thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of artists factored into that equation that are not serious artists. And so that number isn't really giving us a complete picture, because out of those millions of artists trying, only a few of them are professionals. Only a few of them are career musicians.
But I would say that most of them are trying, though. I don't see your issue with including all of those artists with varying degrees of success, self-releasing albums, or varying degrees of seriousness. Like I don't see a problem with that number being accumulated with all of those different types of artists. It's to me, it still says something, and it's still, to me, what it says is that, look, self-releasing artists, you're still only making up 3.3% of recorded, or of the share of recorded music revenues. And even though independent is being glorified, it's difficult. It's difficult. You need to have a strategy. You need to be, investing in yourself. You need to be continuing to, make better music, continuing to, understand your brand and how to present your story. That's really what I gleaned from the article, because the article, is kind of saying, wow, look at these numbers. But to me, it's not wow, because it's still, such a small percentage of the overall industry.
Yeah, no, those numbers are trash. I just look at it as though it's like putting out a statistic saying doctors on average make $25,000 a year. That's a fishy number. But then you find out that they're lumping in all of the medical students, all of the pre-med students, any kid with a play doctor course set.
That's totally different. If you
it's not different, because literally anybody can go on.
No, I mean, because even the average number of doctors would be a fair number, but you just lumped in students, like they're not doctors.
So right. And somebody that just, jerks off on a cell phone and puts it on Spotify isn't a DIY artist. And there are a ton of them out there, so they're getting factored. They're skewing the averages, in my opinion.
But they're not even reporting an average. It's just it's just the total. It's just the total number. Even if you take those people out, like they're not skewing an average. They're just saying what the total number of sales is. So whether you have them in there or not, to me, it doesn't matter. You take all the people out that aren't making any money, the number is still 643 million.
It is, but you have to look at it from averages, because we want to know what the viability of independent and DIY music is, and we don't get a clear picture of that based on this number. We don't know what's an average income for that particular sphere of the music industry. I mean, you know, the other thing that I have an issue with too is because the implication is almost that, granted, this is 3% of the market share, but it's almost like the implication is that the rest of the market share is owned by artists signed to majors, which isn't the case. A lot of that is going to companies that aren't artistic entities, they're business entities, which is fine. That's the way that the music business operates. But just because one artist is making, you know, 50,000 DIY doesn't mean that if they were signed to a label, they'd be making, 10 times more than that. That's not even
the point that I'm trying to make here. All I'm trying to say is being independent is not, we shouldn't be glorifying independence. We should be like saying, yes, it is an option, but this is what you're going to need to do to be successful. Right.
I think we should be celebrating success. I don't know if we need to glorify anything other than whatever makes an artist happy. And I think we agree on that.
So I mean, I want to get, because I don't want to keep on this. We're already probably 20 minutes in, because it does, in this article, it does have more statistics on independent artists versus label artists and how much money they currently earn from music per year. Right. So it would say independent artists, 74% of independent artists make less than 10,000, 9% make 10 to 30,000, 5% make 30 to 50,000, 2% make 50 to 100,000, and 2% make over 100,000. Maybe we should post this article in the Facebook group. Join our Facebook group if you haven't already. But that I think probably speaks more to along the lines of the way you're thinking about these numbers. Because
those numbers are making my head spin too. Because are they reporting independent?
You're just skeptical of any number that it throws out.
Yeah, no, I definitely am, because I know so many people that are doing well as completely unsigned. And then the other thing, are they counting producers? Are they counting DJs? Are they just counting recording artists?
These are recording artists.
Okay.
So, but again, I don't see why that would matter. Basically, the numbers that I just threw out in terms of the percentage of independent artists making, a certain amount of money, it's basically saying that, that label artists, I guess it's saying that on the higher end, artists signed to labels, 9% are making over 100,000, as opposed to independent artists, 2% are making over 100,000. So it's definitely interesting to me. But long story short, I just always want to communicate to artists that independent is an option for all of you. But building out that structure, building out that team, pursuing independent, being successful on a larger scale is a lot of work. So just be prepared for that journey.
That we can agree with, but 2% versus 9%, that's not a huge difference. That's a 7% difference.
Right. Yeah. So that's the number of art. That's the number. I guess I think that is a great point to point out. It's not that big of a difference. So 2% of independent artists are making over 100,000, as opposed to 9% of artists signed to labels are making over 100,000.
I guess that just means It's lonely at the top.
Basically.
Speaking of loneliness at the top, we got my man DJay Mando tuned in. I hope he's tuned in. Maybe we scared him off with all of our arguing.
No, I'm over here. What's up?
Oh, he doesn't want to show his face?
It's all good right now. I mean, I can show my face. It don't matter. My hair kind of crazy though.
I mean, Dame wakes up in a hat, so.
All right, bet. Hold on.
So now we can talk about my topic, which was DJing, and DJay Mando had to open his mouth on Twitter and say something. And I was like, all right, let me hit him with a DM. We're gonna get on this podcast and discuss this topic. We've already been talking about unsigned artists. We've already been talking about the success of unsigned artists, and last episode we talked about radio and whether or not unsigned artists need radio. And I think by the same token, I see a lot of unsigned artists, aspiring artists, asserting that they need radio support. They want to get on the radio. They want national radio play. They want to get on MTV. They want this and that. A part of that is also wanting supportive DJs. They want spins. I get hit up probably by 5 artists I've never heard of every single day, who don't even introduce themselves, who don't even say hello, who I've never heard of, who have never performed in my market, who have never even so much as sent me a drop asking me how they can get in rotation. I don't work in radio anymore. I worked in radio for maybe a net total of 6 years, but I do not work in radio right now.
So they're reaching out to you, assuming that you work in radio just because you have DJ ahead of your name?
Well, I mean, I am a DJ, but they're assuming that I have some kind of channel through which I'm able to just play their record. And it makes me wonder if this is just one of those blanket attempts at reaching people that everybody does in spite of the lack of success that strategy actually yields. The same, it's like the check my SoundCloud, bro, that kind of strategy, but just specifically for DJs. Hey, spin my record. Because I get that all the time. Spin my record, spin my record. Sometimes I'll ask them where should I spin your record? And then just to see if they actually know enough about me to be asking me that request. And I'd say probably 99.9% with a 0.01% margin of error, they have no idea. They'll just say, on radio and clubs, wherever. Like, and I'll say, which club? Do you know which clubs I DJ in? And then it finally just breaks down to, well, you're supposed to be a DJ. You're supposed to break records. You're supposed to support new artists. So that's the mentality that I want to discuss with both of you. But especially
that just sounds hella dumb. If you're doing that, if you're reaching out to people and you don't even know who they are or what they do, that's just hella stupid and lazy, and you're not going to get results that way. I don't understand that.
Well, that was a hot take from Dame. So that's more to do with networking. Mondo, I know you get hit up all the time with the same request. Am I right?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
What is your response? Maybe you're smart and you just don't respond.
Yeah, a lot of the times I really don't. Like, I see some of those screenshots you be posting, they're hilarious. Like, I'll listen to songs, but I won't really, if it's not like something quality, then I don't even respond. Most times, like, if I feel like if it's somebody I know that's sending me music, then I'll just be like, just keep grinding. I'm never really negative to people because I don't want to like destroy somebody's dream or something like that. But I always tell them, just keep working, do your thing, and then if they come up with some quality, then we'll go from there.
So where do you Mando, where do you DJ? Like, where are your outlets? If you did want to spin somebody's record, are you in the clubs? Are you on radio? Like, how?
Yeah, so I started out in Madison, but I'm in Milwaukee right now. So I used to DJ at a club out in Madison. And then now that I'm in Milwaukee, I do a lot of my own events. Like, I throw my own events and I'm more like a concert DJ, concert club DJ.
Dope. Yeah. I mean, I think people reaching out to you guys should know like where you spin records so they can pitch themselves in the best way possible. Right. Yeah. Because a record in the club could be told, it has to have a club vibe, right? If you're on your radio, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to have a club vibe, but it needs to have a radio feel. So, I think people are just throwing throwing as many darts as they can and just hoping somebody responds to them. And I just think that's, you know.
Yeah, it's not really productive. Like the way this whole thing started out was Pain One. He said, "Is there a bad way to promote your music?" And I'm an optimist, so I was like, I want to say there isn't a bad way, but there really is. Like there's just ways that are just really ineffective, especially when it comes to getting somebody to connect with their music, because that's what you're trying to do at the end of the day, trying to connect with people. So if you just drop a link to somebody that you've never spoken to in your entire life, like it's just hard to connect with that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think if you're reaching out to a DJ and you want them to spin your record in the club, then it needs to be a record that helps them do their job, that helps them keep the crowd moving. You know, so don't send over any like boom bap or anything, you know,
Yeah.
that's not gonna get the club rocking.
Oh, Daniel is shitting on boom bap.
I'm not shitting on boom bap, but there's just a time and a place for everything. Nobody goes to the club to hear boom bap.
Well, let me offer this. So I remember when I was a kid, I was at a tape store and I ran into this DJ who was asking me what singles were hot and this was a long time ago because he was a DJ. I was so excited. I'm like, you got to play this and this and this, and you know, kind of in my head, and maybe back then this was a little truer. In my head, DJs just had to play hot records. It didn't matter who they were. People were just hungry for music. Anything that had a good rhythm, anything that kept the energy up, that's what they should play. Just make the crowd happy, keep the crowd dancing, and introduce them to some new music. Curate, right? DJs are curators. And then fast forward, now I'm a DJ, and I'm DJing a lot. And I remember it was a long time ago, I was playing a pack club up north somewhere, and I loved this crowd. It was crazy. They were eating out of the palms of my hand, and I had this new Ludacris single called "How Low," and it wasn't even scheduled to be released, I don't think. And the only reason I had it was because I was managed by the same manager, Brennan, who managed T Minus. So shout out to Brendan, shout out to T Minus. He wasn't T Minus at the time. But he produced that record. I had a copy of it. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to play it. Everybody knows Ludacris. This song is undeniable. And in my defense, a year from there, that was Ludacris, one of his biggest records ever. I played that song. It's like 73, 74, 75 BPMs. That was around the tempo of all the hit records. You know, that clap comes in and makes you want to dance. The whole floor cleared out. Nobody wanted to hear that song. They knew it was Ludacris. The song was hot. The beat was crazy. Cleared the whole floor out because no one had ever heard the record before. So I'm constantly hearing that the DJ's job is to break records. But in order for me to keep my job, I got to keep the crowd happy. And I personally will feel like a failure as a DJ if, as I'm DJing, the floor clears out. So stuff like that makes me think part of it is because the audience, you know, do they want to hear records? Do they want records to be broken, or do they want familiarity? Now I like to play a lot of old school 90s because no one can tell me a damn thing because they've heard those records. They know what they're expecting. It's nostalgia. Everybody wins.
Yeah, I think the idea that DJs should break records is a notion that's a bit outdated, but still possible. Like there's a time and a place to break records. The time and place to break records isn't necessarily at the club, especially not in a small market like Milwaukee or Madison. Maybe in New York or Miami, depending on what club. But the way I break records or curate new music or put my audience on to new music is by playlisting. So I use Spotify and Apple Music and create playlists. And like when it's a playlist, like it has a theme. People know what to expect. You can tell people like, okay, these are my favorite songs. This is like the Hot Girl Summer playlist of all the female rappers out there. There's like, you know, different types of playlists, and that's a way that you can break records and put people on, depending on how big your following is and how many people listen to the playlist. That's a way that I've tried to make up for that, because I don't really play music that people don't know
So
at my shows.
are a lot of DJs starting playlists for the same reason? Like, do you know a lot of DJs that are starting playlists and trying to grow a following to these playlists? Is that happening a lot?
Nah, it was just something that I kind of just decided to do, really, because like I always hear, as a DJ, that same thing. It's like you're supposed to break records. It's like, okay, but if I play the songs that people send me, or if I play songs that people don't know, everybody's just gonna clear the dance floor. Nobody's gonna have fun. People want to hear what they know,
Right.
whether the song is good or not. Like, it takes a lot of people deciding that the song is good, and it takes like just all that industry stuff behind the song, because that's a Ludacris song that Panwell was talking about, one of his biggest hits. And if you play that song before everybody knows about it, before it gets all the radio play and promotion and music videos, nobody cares, because the general public didn't deem that hit, I guess.
Right. Yeah. No, I could definitely see how it's like a risk to play something that people aren't familiar with. So if you're going to do that, you got to really know the crowd, and I guess be super prepared to mix it into something else if it's going south.
You gotta have an entrance and exit plan, But that was like my solution to it. It was like if people say, oh, you should play more local music or play this or that, it's like, okay, I can organize playlists and make my own playlist. Like, I have a Latin playlist, a playlist with all my favorite music, R&B playlist, throwback playlist, like all different types of playlists where it's like it's a vibe that you're looking for and that you know what you're gonna get. And you haven't heard some of the songs that are in that playlist before, perfect. You just learned some new music. It was because of me as a DJ.
I think that's dope. I think more DJs should have a playlist, because that's essentially that's the one of your gifts as a DJ, right? To be able to curate music in a way that people enjoy it. So, playlists.
Nobody's gonna make a playlist better than us,
Right. So that's dope. That's dope.
Well, I mean, I do play local music, but it's when people ask for it, and there have been. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, the core of any musician's career is their fans. It's not a DJ. I'm sorry, it's not a DJ. And I hear people say all the time, well, in Atlanta, they're breaking records in the strip club. There are strippers in the strip club. Of course, you're going to be happy to hear a record because of the strippers. It's not because of the damn DJ. So, and don't let me minimize the role that a DJ plays in the strip club. As a trash ass DJ, you're not going to have a good time. It's a very specific kind of world. And, shout out to them. But there's a reason it's being broken in that context. It's not something that you would play at Summerfest. It's not something that you would try at, some big festival or something. But at least not in my opinion. So if I had records like, Mando, you're from Milwaukee. You remember when Ray Nitty had that hit. Oh, yeah. Everyone was requesting it. I still play that record to this day.
Yeah, that's a classic, Midwest classic right there.
And it's just kind of our state. It's just a Wisconsin record. And then this guy named Motion came out with a song that had a similar feel, and I could mix the two in because the tempos were the same, and everyone kept dancing. And then there was a guy named Ike who had a record called Riding Smoking. The only reason I played that record is because it was requested. Mm-hmm. And so it's a local guy. I played the record. So these artists had fan support. The fans are telling you, I don't need an artist to tell me that he or she or they have a hit. I need the fans to tell me that they like this record. I don't care if you think the song is a hit. I might even like the song. There's a lot of stuff I want to play. I want to play Alkaline and Idonia all damn day. No one wants to hear that, so I'm just not going to play it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here for the crowd's energy. I don't think my job
100%
is to break records. If I wanted to play music that people didn't want to hear, there's a place for that. It's called hipster clubs. Literally, there are places where you can go where there's somebody with a cool looking mustache playing music that nobody's ever heard of, and that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when running Funk Volume, we didn't really make music for the club, so we didn't even like go down that route. But we've never like reached out heavily to DJs. You know, there were some DJs like on Sirius Radio, you know, that we developed relationships with, and they would spin our records here and there. But DJs was never a core of where we would go to try to get our record spun, because we never felt like we made radio records, number one. But number two, we always just felt like, you know, go direct to the fans and have the fans request our records wherever they are. You know, we didn't really go that route. But I do know that in certain cities, some DJs still break records. So whether it's the strip club or whatever, it is a little bit of an outdated notion, like nationwide. But I think in select cities, it happens still.
Right. And yeah, I don't think breaking records is something that like has stopped completely, obviously. I just think there's new ways to do it, and that a lot of DJs aren't doing it yet.
Right.
You know?
But those records got to be really, really, really the right record for the right context. You break a record in a strip club, it's got to be pretty dope.
Yeah. And if it's not, then nobody makes money and everybody's pissed.
That I would be scared to death. I've never,
man, because they'll be like, yo, we finna play your song in the strip club. He wants to go, and he's got like 10 bands in his pocket, but he's like, damn, what if my song flop? And everybody boos me out of the club.
Well, and it's not just that. Me as the DJ, I'm taking a risk because I got 5 women working, and if they're not making money because they don't feel the record, that's 5 angry people at the end of the night.
Right.
In addition to an angry club owner because they didn't make any money.
Right.
You know.
So if you're taking the risk, right, you could go the safe route and make the club money and make the strippers money, or you can be the risky tastemaker who takes risks, and maybe the song flops, but then maybe like a year later or 6 months later, the song blows up, and you could say you were the first one to play that in the club. But
no one cares. That's the
exactly.
thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's
you
like,
don't get anything for that. Like if I could raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'm the first one who booked Ludacris How Low in the Wisconsin market."
Exactly, and everybody was gonna be like, "Man, that song sucked when you played it," but it's lit now, though.
Exactly.
That's why it's like I don't know, man. It's like doing a favor for somebody that might come in handy later, as far as like the artist, when you play their song and nobody rocks with it, but they could be like, oh, well, that's a real ass DJ or something like that. Like, you know, I don't know, man.
That happened with me with J. Cole, actually. That's why I got to eat a barbecue sandwich with him, because I was an early adopter when it came to J. Cole's music.
That's dope.
All right. Well, I think all in all, stop reaching out to people if you don't know who the hell they are. You got to do your research. Make sure you present yourself in a way that shows that you add value to what they're doing. If you don't know what they're doing, then it's impossible for you to do that. So stop doing that shit. Stay out of Payne's DMs.
and DJay Mando. He's got playlists. That's how he deflects the onslaught of DMs. He just says submit to my playlist. You want to weigh in on this Meek Mill thing? We got time for that?
Well, I don't even think too many people are going to need to weigh in. It's really kind of like, let's wait and see what happens. So essentially, Meek Mill just signed a label deal with Roc Nation, for his Dream Chasers label. But earlier this year, it might have been later last year, he was talking about how all artists deserve an even deal. Like it should be a 50-50 split. And Mark Tavern, one of our guests on the MEC, wrote about it, and it was a DJ Booth article. That's how it got brought to my attention. So it's just going to be interesting to see, now that he is the business person and is going to be signing artists, is he going to give them at least a 50-50 deal? My assumption is that his perspective will shift a little bit. And I know we're probably not going to be privy to the details of the artist deals, but if we do get some details later on, it'd be interesting to see whether or not, he's giving artists even deals.
Yeah, I mean, the problem too with that is when you make a statement like that, there are so many different opportunities for splits within a deal, right? I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking, especially in the era?
He's essentially saying like it should be a 50-50 profit split. Like that should be
for everything.
we mean for in terms of everything. I mean, just in terms of like you make an album, it profit 100,000, 50,000 goes to the label, 50 goes to the artist.
So we're just talking about revenue from the sales of the master then.
Right. I mean, artists don't typically sign their publishing away. Right. I mean, that's a total. I mean, hopefully that's a separate deal or conversation. If publishing is part of the situation, but
well, it does happen. You know, we got 360 deals where artists are signing away a certain percentage of their merchandise, a certain percentage of their touring revenue. Who knows? Anything goes. I mean, you can put anything in the deal. So
right. I think it, you know, yeah, all that stuff can happen. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, he was talking about, you know, music sales. So it should be kind of like a 50-50 profit split. So it will be interesting to see if that's what, you know, he ends up offering artists.
But you're saying that as someone who knows the business. The average person, even the average aspiring music recording artist, whatever, doesn't know the business. And so they might hear Meek Mill say 50-50 and they think it could mean everything. I mean, people don't necessarily know all the different revenue streams.
Well, that's why I think his perspective is going to shift, because I don't think he understands the business as well as he will as he gets on the other side of the table. So I think it's fair for his perspective to shift, because I think before, you know, I think he was speaking from an uneducated standpoint because he's only been in the artist's shoes. And I don't know if he's really understands like all of the different, you know, costs and risks that the label is taking. So I'm not going to be mad if his perspective shifts. I think it will just be him going through an education process that, oh, now I understand, you know.
I think it's possible to give artists fairer deals. You know, at the end of the day, if I'm a recording artist and I'm signing a deal, I just want the project to be successful, and I want to get something out of it. But if I own my publishing rights, and if I'm getting a fair split of the you know, the royalties from the master, and if my advance is good, I just want the project to be successful. And you know,
you say that now, but then the project like sells 30 million, 40 million, and you're like, hold on, like I did that. You know, that's what a lot of artists do.
Well, but artists think that after getting 3 shows. I don't know, Mando, you've worked with artists time and time again. You see how this goes. Things change once the perceived success, this perceived financial success starts coming in, and a lot of it is just all illusion, you know, because realistically, I don't think artists are getting jerked as much as they claim they are. Not the successful ones. I mean, we already talked about the stats of the signed artists, and the artists at the top that are making money, they're making money.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree, because if you think about, you know, because most of the artists that feel like they're getting jerked around are going to scream to the top of their lungs. So we know about them. So we can assume that the ones that aren't, that the ones that are happy aren't saying it. And that, to me, that's a majority of artists. Like, that's a significant majority of artists. The ones that are successful and aren't complaining, you know, if we assume that they're fine with their situation, that's a heavy majority of artists.
It's artists. We're dramatic. It's easy to outrage an artist. It's easy to piss one of us off.
Yeah. The last thing I would say is that, you know, some artists are going to deserve a 50-50 deal. Some artists are going to deserve a higher percentage than the label, you know, not artists that are just starting out. So
I'm curious, give me a scenario in which an artist deserves. So you say you're a label, and you're about to sign an artist. What would have to be present for you to give them a 60-40 or a 70-30 split?
I mean, if their music's already selling well, and like, even if I was still running Funk Volume and, you know, they were already moving, but the benefit of joining us would have been more of just kind of like on the management side, or just like having structure, having a team, just having people to, you know, continue to push the ball forward. If they were already doing as well as, Dizzy or Hop or whoever, then I definitely would, consider a 60-40, 70-30 in their favor, because I feel like they're adding a lot to what we're doing as well. And it's easy. Like, it's less, there's no risk really. You already got hella stuff going on. We just have to manage it and help grow it. I'd be happy to. I mean, I think any label should, if the artist is of that level, and again, they're just kind of looking to plug into a larger system.
And that never happened? Were you considering any artists like that?
No, we never. Dizzy wasn't. He wasn't even an artist that was an artist full time. He was doing music, and same with Jaren. Jaren, once he signed with us, we gave him an advance, and he was able to kind of leave his job and get going very quickly, because having a fan base that gravitated towards his music, it accelerated things. But we never were going to sign an artist that was already kind of established.
I was about to ask Mando a question, but it looks like he's about to go in on his breakfast.
Hey man, I'm going crazy right now. I love breakfast. Anyways, what's up?
It's like noon right now, and this is brunch.
Nah, breakfast is the first meal of the day.
Dame, you want to argue against that?
It depends.
I wake up at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah, I'm up super early, but this would be and well, sometimes I don't have breakfast, but I would agree that it's probably the first meal of the day, depending on what your sleep cycle is. If he's waking up now, then
I mean, like in Peru, they'll be DJing till like 9 a.m, and then they'll sleep till 1 or 2, wake up and eat breakfast.
That was real diplomatic of you, Dame.
Did you assume that I was gonna argue that one? I don't have any complaint. You can eat Payne. You can eat breakfast anytime you want, bro. You can eat breakfast at 10 a.m. I mean 10 p.m. if you want.
Not only that, but it's the most versatile meal. Like, it tastes good at 10 p.m.
Right.
Anyways,
we wrapping things up, Payne? Or are we gonna jump into this? Do you need a team topic, or should we punt that to?
No, I'm not. You just want to argue with me about that damn tweet.
That's what this podcast is for,
I'm
man.
just like agreeing with you. Yes, Dame, you need a team. You win. I have so little energy right now to argue about this team thing, given what happened on Twitter. So
how about we'll extend the conversation next week if necessary? But I think we both agree. Like, you can, obviously there are people that have a career in music that don't have a team. However, once you want to get past a certain point, you're going to need a team, and then there might be some debate on where that point is. But literally, if you're an artist and you want to be firing from all cylinders, you're tasked with running like 5 different businesses: merch, publishing, touring, management, the music. Like, those are essentially 5 different businesses, and you can manage them all to a certain extent. Like, if you're only doing a couple shows a month or a year or whatever, you get like 1 placement a year. You're selling like, $60 a month in merch. Like, that's easily doable, but once that scales up, that's when you're going to run into a problem.
A whole lot of problems. But when you get to that point, you got money to hire a team. And it's crazy because I'm thinking in my head, who do I know that was lucky enough to very early on in their career link up with a team that was motivated and kind of all on equal footing, and they all started kind of elevating and moving forward together. And I'm like, well, he's right here. His name is DJay Mando.
He got a squad. So what is your team? Who does your team consist of?
Well, when I was starting out, it was me as the DJ, my friend Lucian Parker as the rapper, and we had a manager. His name is Brennan. So now there's Lucian. We had another artist named Bravo. Brennan is no longer in the picture. We fired him. And we have like a promoter, street team organizer. And then we have in-house photo and video. So like a media team. And and we have our own lighting director for our shows to like amplify the live set.
So Yeah. I mean, if you can make, especially if you can make it work, obviously if everybody's on this, it's very difficult to do. And as you grow, it's difficult to manage expectations and to keep that communication on point. Like it's easy to come together in the beginning, but as you guys are having some success, or maybe even as you're failing together, you know, it's tough to keep it together. Whether money comes into the picture or egos start going crazy, people start feeling like, you know, I'm doing more than you.
And just motivation too. Like, you know, people get burnt out. Because like I have there's some other people I forgot to mention. So for my Summerfest set, I had choreographers, and they're not really like choreographers, they're just my friends, and we all get on stage and dance and like just make the set more fun. But they all do their own thing. Like there's one dancer on my team, his name is Dose, and then I got my little brother who is like a mixer, engineer, and rapper, and then my friend Keys, who's also a rapper, and then my cousin, who's like our personal trainer, bodybuilder type guy. And I got all of them to come together for Summerfest and put together choreography for the set. Dope. And it made the show like 10 times better because we did what we did, rehearsed and killed it. And we rehearsed every day for like 3 weeks straight. And now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, that was good. That's a way to make money for everybody without necessarily like letting Keys rap on stage, or, you know, like everybody doesn't have to do what they do. We could all just do it under the umbrella of my set and all make money doing it, which is dope. It's just that, you know, you got to make sure and manage everybody's like motivation on that. Like, does everybody want to like really be doing choreography like that and practicing every day for like 3 months straight for one show and for a whole tour, like, you know, stuff like that.
Right. Dope. So
that brings up a good topic of the stage show and putting on a good show, and it'd be great.
That's where I make the majority of my money. You know, it's all shows, and so trying to level up the show and convince people that I deserve more money for the show because of the energy that I bring. Like,
dope.
I'm writing that down in my notes.
Payne, I gotta close this out soon, but I think the one area in your tweet where we did disagree a little bit is where you said, you know, the people that you pay for services aren't really part of your team.
There we go.
Right. And I think that's very true for a lot of the people that you just pay for services. But even let's just say like my merch guy, I considered him part of the team, even though it was just like a service, because I felt like he was just part of the team. And I feel like that increases the overall morale when he does feel like he's part of the team, or when I say he's part of the team. So I would probably broaden out the number of people that I would, because even like my assistant, like I just paid my assistant, but I considered her part of the team. Or like a graphic designer that does like recurring work all the time, that really understands our brand, that we go to because he or she's going to knock it out super quick because they know what we're trying to do. Like I extend, even though they don't have equity in the situation, I consider them part of the team because they're providing a lot of value and they know us and there's a relationship there. So there's that, but you know, there is some people that are just one-off. We pay them, go away, you know, whatever. But there's people that we also like have ongoing relationships with that I would, you know, extend the team term to. Well,
then we're not really disagreeing, because what I said was just because you pay somebody for a service, that doesn't make them a part of your team.
Got you. Okay, cool.
And I was at the point where I literally was getting tweets from people saying that anybody you purchase services from are part of your team. Someone actually said the cashier at the grocery store that sells you your milk is part of your team. So maybe it was eggs. Let me be as accurate as possible. So the person selling you eggs is a part of your team. I have a long day ahead of me, so I don't even want to get into it.
Now here's probably how I could define it in terms of how I worked with people. Like if I was on a set weekly call with you, you were part of the team for sure.
Yeah, well, you're a part of my team, Dame. I'm a part of your team. That's undeniable. We argue every damn day, so that to me, that's an indicator that you're on the same team.
Indeed. Mando, appreciate you joining us today, man.
No
I
doubt.
have to start following what you do. I was actually unfamiliar with who you are and what you do. So glad to meet you, and I'll be following you and checking up on all the festivals and stuff you got going on.
Cool. You as well, man. Y'all drop a lot of dope information that's really a major important part of being successful in the music industry. So respect to y'all.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That's a good segue to reminding everyone we're on tour, MECtour.com. We're on the East Coast. We did the West Coast the last time. We're going to probably work on the Midwest next if there's another region remaining. Who knows what's going on? Future's wide open. MECtour.com, musicentrepreneur club.com, episode 6. One more down. Appreciate all of you. Peace.